Gabon's President Ali Bongo was overthrown from power through military coup that was orchestrated by his general who was sleeping with his French wife Sylvia Valentine Bongo. The two lovers were seen flirting publicly during a national event in the presence of Ali Bongo, making him restless and mad. Ali Bongo's father, Omar Bongo, had ruled Gabon for 42 years until his death in 2009 when he succeeded him. Despite his deteriorating health due to stroke, he wanted to seek a third term before his ouster by military coup. Millions of cash was found stashed in bags hidden inside his house, while millions of Gabonese are languishing in abject poverty. The ousted leader currently placed under house arrest, from where he addressed fellow greedy African presidents begging for help to reclaim his presidency.
I'm Ali Bongo Ondimba, President of Gabon, and I'm to send a message to all the friends that we have all over the world to tell them to make noise for the people.
Remember Jesus' last words on the cross? Ili, Ili, lama shabaktani. My God, why have you forsaken me? Well, did you know that those are only his last words according to Matthew and Mark? It's in the book of Luke that he says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. And his last lines are actually, Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit. And then in John, the most interesting account in my opinion, first he says, Woman, behold thy son, and behold thy mother. I thirst. It is finished. Now, if all the disciples were there, why do they have different accounts of what his last words were? Elian, why are you so obsessed with Jesus? Are you Christian? I know, but I've been obsessed with Jesus since I was a kid. The fact that we measure time according to when someone was here on earth used to boggle me as a kid. And obviously I needed to find out everything I could about who he was because, why is this person so important? But anyway, back to the last words. Now, Christian scholars have pretty much reconciled these into the 7 sayings of Christ on the cross. But the fact is that you can't find all 7 in one book. The one I didn't mention being Luke 23:43. Truthfully I say unto thee, today thou shalt be with me in paradise. So different last words, as well as different accounts on who was saved that day. Was it the robber? Was it Barabbas? Was it no one? Now, in the Jewish faith, Jesus is generally considered by scholars to be a false prophet, because it's considered that the time of his coming isn't aligned with the prophecies of the true Messiah. And in the Quran, he was never unalived. What? Yeah, you heretic. No, I'm serious. Now, regardless of your fate, let's just think about this for a second. In the Quran, the unalivement of Jesus is only spoken of in the past tense. And it comes at the end of the chapter, An-Nisa, the women. Which honestly makes a lot of sense considering that the biblical accounts of the last days of Jesus have a lot of women around him. And it's the women who follow him afterwards to the tomb, and the women who are sent to speak to the disciples. Honestly, women are so underplayed in the Bible. But anyway, Quran chapter 4, verse 157. The Jewish people said, we killed al-Masih, Isa, son of Maryam, the messenger of Allah, but they killed him not, nor crucified him. But it appeared like that to them. And those who differ therein are full of doubts. They have no certain knowledge. They follow nothing but conjecture. For surely they killed him not. The idea is that it wasn't Jesus himself, but the likeness of him that was put on the cross. And there is so much debate as to what that even means. In the Apocrypha and the Gnostic Gospels, Jesus is considered to only have ever been a likeness, as in he was never truly fully human, but mostly spirit, and therefore was incapable of suffering like a human. Now, all of this discussion was shut down by the church because this idea undermines the most fundamental tenet of Christianity, which was that Jesus suffered for our sins. But what do you think? Has the Messiah come and gone, or is he still on his way?
I highly suggest that you watch this video before you eat another egg. There is a huge difference between the conventional eggs that you get at the grocery store versus something that is called pasture-raised organic eggs. There's a huge difference, and that's what I'm going to get in today. Unfortunately, even the expiration date is not regulated. So in other words, companies can just omit that little date on the box. And it's not unlikely that these eggs could sit on the shelf for 60 days. That's 2 months before you end up buying them. But one of the things that really shocked me when I did a deep dive in this topic is the feeds that they feed the chickens, the animal feeds. Okay, what are in these animal feeds? Yes, they have GMO corn and soy. And that's very unnatural because these chickens were meant to consume bugs, insects, worms, flowers, seeds, things like that. But I found out that there's another ingredient called animal byproducts, or another name for that would be animal protein products. That would include the carcass of another animal, feathers, organs, blood, skin, even of the same species, and manure. And at first I'm like, wait a second, that can't be true. But as I dug further into this topic, it's true. These animals are fed shit. Now, of course, you also get an option on the label sometimes. They're fed vegetarian feeds, right? Well, I want to bring up a point about vegetarian feeds, and that would be corn and soy. No animal products, okay? But I also want to point out that it's very unnatural for a chicken just to consume grains without bugs, worms, things like that, which, by the way, are not vegan. And chickens are actually omnivores. So that leads me to the next topic about eggs, relating to the color of the egg yolk. Some people have this idea that if you look at the color of the egg, it'll tell you the health of that egg, right? Makes total sense until you find out that they actually sell and use on a regular basis colored pigments, synthetic dyes, to make the yolk look a certain color. Because if you don't do that, the consumer is not going to buy it. So honestly, this is just a way of tricking the consumer. The name of one of the dyes is called xanthans. And at least in Europe, they've restricted this to a certain amount because they found that it causes crystals that develop on the retina. Now, as far as in America, I have no idea. But in nature, when you have a natural chicken that consumes what it's supposed to eat, you get a really nice gold yellow color of that yolk. That is all the natural antioxidants, especially the two nutrients called lutein as well as zeaxanthin, which are all necessary for your eye, for the retina. And so an egg that has less of this rich pigment, the less of those antioxidants you're going to have. And there's not just those two. I mean, there's probably over 600 different carotenoids. They use dyes also to color the meat of the chicken to make sure it looks like a healthy chicken skin. I mean, it's just crazy what's happening. Even if you go to the grocery store and you buy a chicken breast, right? Just look on the back of the label. You'll see that in some cases they add flavoring. I'm not kidding. To make it taste like chicken. So basically we're tricking people into making it taste good, look good, without really focusing on the quality. Now, I've talked about the chicken feed a little bit, but what about the environment, the space, right? You have different terms they throw around like free range and cage free and pasture raised. The first thing to know is that conventional chickens are in cages and they never see the light of day. And you're talking about probably roughly having up to 80 to 100,000 of these chickens in one barn, in one space. And it's also been studied that the cortisol greatly spikes in that situation. That can't be healthy for the chicken. And then we have something called cage free. It sounds a lot better, but all they do is they remove the cage, but they don't change the spacing. So in order to be cage free, you actually have to have a foot of space for that chicken. So you're still shoulder to shoulder. You're still in a closed space. Then you have free range, right? What does free range mean? Well, for free range, you get about 2 square feet of space. You have some limited outdoor access. There might be a hole in the barn where it can stick its head out to maybe see outside. And if I'm not mistaken, free range is antibiotic free, whereas cage free, they can use antibiotics like conventional. And then we get to pasture raised. This is the best because they get 108 square feet of space per chicken. Much better. And they are allowed to go out and forage for bugs and worms and insects and flowers and things like that. And even if you compare pasture raised to conventional, there is at least 3 times as much vitamin A, retinol. There's more choline, there's more B2, there's more folate, there's 3 times as much vitamin E. And overall, you're going to get more fat-soluble vitamins. Now, I do want to mention antibiotics for a second because you might say, well, they don't really use antibiotics anymore. Well, worldwide, out of all the sale of antibiotics, 66% of all of those antibiotic cells are sold to farm animals. And in America, 80% of all antibiotics are used for farm animals. So of course, when you get eggs, when you buy eggs, make sure it says antibiotic free, or even better yet, just do organic, pastured raised eggs. That way you include a better environment for that chicken as well as a better source of feed, because organic has to come without those pesticides, insecticides, herbicides, non-GMO, which is good, but they also have no hormones, no antibiotics, no arsenic, and no poultry slaughter byproducts. So in other words, those animal byproducts that include the waste are not in organic. Now you might say, well, they're more expensive. Yeah, they're a few more dollars. Well, guess what? It's worth it. And even the reason why they use antibiotics, they use it as a growth hormone. That's what they're using to grow them in a very fast rate. Now, I was driving down the freeway a while ago, maybe 3 weeks ago, and I got behind a huge tractor trailer filled with chickens in cages. And I had to really make sure that I kept my eyes on the road because I was looking at these chickens, just terrible, terrible, terrible situation, because these chickens did not look healthy at all. And they were in complete terror. One last thing about these chicken eggs. Sometimes you'll see omega-3 enriched, okay? And that is a marketing gimmick. You don't really know the source of omega-3 that they're enriching these chickens with. Personally, I think you'd be better off just focusing on the pastured, raised, organic chicken eggs. Or better yet, if you have the space for them and you can put chickens in your backyard, I would highly recommend to do that. When people come over to my house and they stay over and I feed them the eggs, wow, it's incredible. They just are like, wow, these are so satisfying. They're so delicious. They're amazing. So I highly recommend you think about maybe getting your own chickens. So
thanks for watching up to this far. It's been a pleasure. Join the membership platform. Go and share these videos. Keep it tuned for more. Kaboom! God.